Hello and welcome to the podcast today. And we have a very interesting discussion for the day. I would like to mention that we have two guests on this podcast, and we have three sisters actually. Sadia, you're welcome. Walaikum
I'm
assalam.
sure people already
Okay.
know me, but
Yeah, yeah. Most of our listeners already know you. Sama, you're welcome on the show again.
Thanks.
Okay, so today's topic is going to be what is love? Does real love exist? So let's start with. Should I start with my opinion first? Would you like to hear my opinion?
yeah, sure, you go first.
Go first.
Okay, but you see, I believe that love does exist. Okay, there is no doubt that love does exist. But I think defining what love is going to be a bit confusing because I feel it has been misunderstood in different ways all over the world. It probably has something to do with cultural background, maybe mindset. But I think there are four classifications of love today as we have it in the world today. And I feel that the classifications are one, lust, two, infatuation, three, obsession, and the fourth one is definitely true love. So, what is your opinion about it, Sadia?
You're very right. And the list of classifications you have given there, they really exist. And I personally believe love does exist, but you have to be lucky to find it, I think,
Okay,
in today's time, especially because we are
okay.
no longer in those olden times. Jab love was very real, and I don't know how to put it. They you could it was I think easier to find true love back then because things were not so complicated.
How back ago?
Olden times, Kello, 30, 30, 50 years ago.
Hmm. What
I
about
don't
Simon? What is your
really think love uh, exists, but it is very rare. True love is very rare.
Yeah, that's okay. I agree with that. Simon, what is your opinion?
I think love exists. Love definitely exists. And as Sadia said, true love is rare, very rare. And it's just that it is very rare.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay, let me explain. Let's basically talk a bit about all of these in depth. What do you think is lust? How would you define lust?
Okay, let me go first here. You
Mhm.
see, basically, love as a phenomena, it's practically impossible to define love. Okay. Over the centuries, people have tried to define love, but it's almost impossible to define love. But all these things that you've listed out, love, infatuation, obsession, lust, let's say lust is a stage of love itself. Like I was reading somewhere, I came across it somewhere that that there are basically three stages of it. Or it's been broken down into three basically. There is the lust part of it, then there is the attraction part of it, and it's
Mhm.
the attraction part of it that the infatuation comes in. And that's the real time when relationships mess with our mind, and the hormones are going crazy and all that.
Hmm.
Losing sleep over somebody, you're losing your appetite over somebody. So that's the attraction phase. So it's in
Hmm.
this phase that the infatuation also comes in. And then there's the
Okay.
last stage, that's the stage of the attachment. Now, this attachment stage is actually where the real bonding takes place.
Hmm. Okay. So
So, so,
that means that all
so
these things, all these steps lead to you finding love. Basically, that's what you're trying to say.
basically, yeah.
Sadia, what do you think about it? How would you explain lust, obsession, and infatuation?
That really makes sense, the way Simon put it.
Hmm.
There are stages in some ways if you look at it. But at times, I don't think people get ahead of particular stages. Like maybe someone might be feeling lust for someone, but they cannot move on ahead to take it to the love aspect. So that
Hmm.
relationship ends right there at last. There's no
Okay.
no bonding going on. There's no connection going on.
Hmm.
Likewise, obsession, infatuation. These there are stages, but it just depends on if they can move on from these stages and go to the actual love level.
Hmm. Okay, I have a different opinion about all this. I feel like there has been so much of misinterpretation, or should I say misuse of the word love, that the present generation is completely, like, lost about it. They are so confused, because let me just explain how I look at it. I look at it as most of the people today have the feeling of lust, and how I explain lust to people is, it's more of a physical attraction. It has to be more about intimacy and trying to get, physically close to the person that you feel attracted to. But that is when it ends. You establish a physical relationship and it ends there. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is more of a Western influence on our Asian culture, that this has started happening in our society. You see teenagers, going on dates, and basically it's all physical for them, and they think it is love. They call that love. A person
Yes.
like me, who is probably from a different decade, that is wrong at different levels. I think it's a waste of time if you feel like that for a person. I don't call that love. I call that a mistake. I call that something momentary. Like, it just, once you get physically intimate with that person, that's it, it ends. So I don't classify lust as the same as love. Then when I talk about the next type of love that we see in the world today, I'm calling it a type of love because it's a version of love that is also mistaken version. It's not really what I classify as love. And that is infatuation. And the way I understand infatuation is when it is a one-sided thing. When one person is having all these, romanticizing feelings, and like feeling that that person has some care or affection for me, but actually that person has no sentiments like that for you. So it's a one-sided thing. That's infatuation, in my opinion. That's a form of love, but it's a mistaken love yet again. It's your mistake that you're, like, deceiving yourself somehow, because that person might not have given you any signals indicating that he has a romantic intention or she has a romantic intention towards you, but you assume it. Then there's this problem about obsession. Some people are so like determined that no, 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 I know this is it. This person loves me, and that person also loves you, probably loves you back. But then you want to hold that person on to yourself so much that you kind of choke that person, and the person has no freedom left. So that's kind of obsession. And the funniest part I see in our society nowadays is people are doing this too much. They are like either into lust, into infatuation, or obsessive relationships, in which you see them making promises to each other that I want to marry you, I'll marry you, and this and that. But after that, they break each other's hearts and marry another person and move on, because in the end, they want to marry the person their parents choose. So, it becomes funny when you meet that person and you tell your child, this is your uncle. Look, this guy is your uncle, whereas you actually dated that guy, you know? So where was the love there? It's
Solid.
not love.
Really. And it happens.
Yeah, but yeah, it happens a lot. It's happening a lot in our society. You see young girls, young boys dating each other. At the end of the day, those kids start, like, their kids are raised to call each other uncle and aunties. It's not something that lasts. But when I look at love, I think it has to do with respect, emotions. You have to be caring for each other. You should have to have the zeal to share things with that person, and a lot of emotional dependency has to be there, especially respect and emotional dependency, and
True.
the willingness to spend the life together. You need to know that you want to spend the rest of your life together. You have to have that much understanding, and then you
Okay.
should talk about marriage.
Yes. What do you think
Yes,
about it?
Saima?
The thing is, lust, yes, lust is more of a biological phenomena, okay? It has more to do with, with the hormones. And lust has existed from the beginning of time. It's just the
Okay.
mere attraction between the male species and the female species. That's all really it is.
So we can
But
look at it as a chemical reaction, basically, with our hormones and nothing else.
yes, everybody knows what testosterone and estrogens to the libido of both the
Yeah,
sexes.
yeah.
So, so yeah, lust is essentially a biological and chemical phenomena. But you see, when you are in a true relationship, in a loving relationship, or in an attachment with somebody, so yes, lust is a natural component of it. Intimacy is a normal component of a marital relationship. So
Mhm.
so that naturally comes in. So that in the context of a marriage or a true love that led to a marriage, in that context, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But you cannot classify lust as love. No, lust is a stage of love, I would say.
Okay.
And infatuation is something that is time bound. It's transitory. It passes after certain time.
Mm.
It's a feeling of fondness you feel for somebody who you are attracted to, but it may be one sided, it will be both sided, but it doesn't last long. You eventually grow out of it. You grow, and then this one, that's obsession. There's actually something called as obsessive love disease.
Oh
It's
my
not
God,
a
really?
formal Yes, it's not formally classified as a mental disease in the International Classification of Diseases or
But
recognized as an entity by psychiatrists or psychologists. But yeah, the
okay.
concept exists. It's obsessive. There's something known as obsessive love disease, in which, yeah, a person gets the infatuation gets carried over to the next stage. You become obsessed with that person. Sort of you go crazy about that thing, so much so
Okay.
that you're stifling the other person.